This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is James Arnold Taylor, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi. I have a good feeling about this.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. We are your spoiler-free place for Star Wars discussion, analysis, and rhetoric. I am your host, Dan Z, drinking One Nation coffee out of my black and silver Lucasfilm coffee mug. Very excited to speak with each and every one of you on today's show. We have the awesome CWK newsman Tom Gross joining us.
Well, hello, everybody. And Dan, it's great to be here again for another episode of Clone Wars.
People are starting to talk about you and I doing these Clone Wars shows together, and they are loving the way we are breaking down it. And you know what? I'm glad because I have a great time talking with you, of course, each and every week.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Besides just a great topic and a great show to discuss, it's always good to talk with you. And so, episode 8, season 7, together again.
Together again, just like us.
Just like us. How about that?
Yes. So, together again is the episode. This is the finale of the Ahsoka arc. So we want to give this one a letter grade and sort of an overall. And then at the end of the episode, I'm going to ask you how this arc ranks in the pantheon of Clone Wars stories in storytelling. But before we get to that, we've got a lot of episode to discuss. So let's look at what's your letter grade and what do you think of this episode overall?
I give this episode the letter grade of B+, which has been my standard for most of season 7, except for last episode, which was Dangerous Debt. I gave that one an A right from the get-go. But I dropped back just a bit to B+ on this one. I can't really say or put my finger on what I felt was missing. It just didn't have the same deep emotion, or I'm not sure exactly what it was, but some things I really enjoyed about this one is the Pikes are an interesting race, and I've enjoyed seeing kind of how their planet works, how their dependency on spice for their economy. It's like crazy how obsessed they are with getting this spice back to the lengths that they will go. But then we also get to see a special guest in this one that I'll save for later, I think, that gives us an idea of why the spice or getting the spice returned is so important. So a couple of things I really liked about this one was the continued reveal and more information about Bo-Katan and Ursa Wren. We get more of them in this. We get our special guest that we'll discuss at the end of the show that always brings a smile to my face. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's just interesting things are going to happen when this individual shows up. And then the continued relationship between the Martez sisters and Ahsoka, really have enjoyed that as well. So B+ on this for me.
Very good. Well, I am going to give it an A-.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons, which I will sprinkle throughout naturally, but I think it ends it well. I don't feel like it was a filler episode by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
And I think we learned a lot about Rafa, and I think this is in many ways is just sort of a springboard into the Siege of Mandalore arc. So
certainly.
Yeah, so we jump into this. Trace and Rafa and Ahsoka are all together again, and I found myself asking over and over again, why is this titled Together Again?
Yeah.
Who reunites? Of course, at the end, Ahsoka reunites with someone, but that's not exactly like the reunion we've been longing for. It's not to have a huge history together, really. Maybe it's just the three of them back in this cell. I don't know. Any thoughts before we talk about specifics, why it's called Together Again?
Oh, yeah, I certainly do. And I don't know how much you want me to go into this, but I think it refers to the sisters. They get a split in the middle where Trace takes the side of Ahsoka, and Rafa is very upset and feels extremely betrayed by this, and so I think that's a part of it. as well as there's a certain trust that needs to be extended here where the three split, and at the end they come back together again, almost to their execution. So I think there's several different levels which that title can play.
It brings them together again, like where they can trust each other. It's not like it's not such a one-sided parasitic relationship. It's a little more of an understanding about how the other one works.
Oh,
which would be absolutely great. Yeah, it's a nice balm that Ahsoka has helped to craft. But the three debate over how they got there, but suddenly Ahsoka says something that she probably could have said, in episode 2, but it wouldn't have worked as well because Ahsoka needed to learn more about the Martez sisters, and they needed to learn about her. And Ahsoka decides, I'm going to try to help them get off the planet. Mm-hmm. I'm going to selflessly sacrifice myself. I mean, she knows she can get out. I don't think she thinks she's going to die. Mm-hmm. But still an extraordinarily selfless act. And the way that this all kind of goes down, I think is fascinating. Go ahead and talk about when they address the leader of the Pikes and how Ahsoka reveals her plan.
Sure. One thing there is a quote early in the episode where they're in the cell and Ahsoka says, "Let's look at how we got here." Mm-hmm. And I love how her analysis of like, okay, so in order to get out of here, we've tried twice. We've escaped the cell twice. And here we are again. So let's look and see how we got here. And they had just finished from the season or the series or the show Dangerous Debt. They'd just gone through like an apology from Rafa, and Ahsoka, you live and you learn. So let's look and see how we got here. And this is where Rafa feels betrayed. Well, basically I lost my train of thought. Basically the plan is that she wants and needs and like relies upon the trust of the Martez sisters, because they go up to is it Marge Krim? Is that the leader of the? Okay,
that's how I read it. Yeah. So
they're in front of him, and she basically says, "They're not my friends. You if you want your spice back, I don't know where it is, but I'll tell you what, I will stay here. Let them go for one rotation, and they will return the spice. If they don't return, I'll tell you where their family lives." And Trace is completely betrayed by this, but you can see that Rafa's kind of understands what's going on here. And so Marge Krim allows Trace and Rafa to go, gives them one rotation. And I like how his secondhand man, Marge Krim's secondhand man, steps over and says, this is a deception. And this is where you get the feeling that here these tough Pikes, this crime gang family influence of the galaxy isn't the top dog, because Marge Krim says, "I know it's a deception, but I have no choice." And his second man hand says, "But he knows about this. Do you think he knows about this?" And Marge Krim says, "He always knows."
He knows.
And so, And so we're like, "Oh, who is this?" Yes, he always knows. So
I actually have a great story about that too, about when we first watched it.
All right. Well, so I was just going to conclude by saying it's a huge trust step for Ahsoka, for Trace, for Rafa. This is their chance to get away. This is their chance to whatever. And so we'll get to that, but I want to hear your story.
Well, I mean, let's rewind just a little bit. The way Ahsoka breaks that down, so convincing and conniving in her machinations, saying, "You know what? I'll tell you where their family is. And I just want my cut." And I thought, well, do the Pikes really going to fall for this, because they haven't shown any kind of signs of this at all? Of course, they're all criminals. They don't have a reason to trust people, because I'm sure they don't even trust one another, at least to a degree. They have no idea what Ahsoka is like or what the sisters are like. But I was thrown that Trace was thrown. When Ahsoka says, "I'll give up the family." Mm-hmm. I mean, Rafa, of course, had a great poker face.
Yep.
But Trace was sort of confused by it, and I thought, well, Trace, your only family is Rafa.
Yeah.
So what are you concerned with, unless there's more to the story that we're not aware of? And then based on the next time we see them actually have a conversation, it's not until they're back, I'm assuming, on Coruscant, fixing up their ship and eating at some sort of a diner from American Graffiti. So I don't know. That kind of took me out of it momentarily. The fact that she was naive enough not to know what Ahsoka was doing. It's one thing to be naive. It's one thing to be to not really grasp what's going on in front of you. Yeah, to be clueless. And
she's clueless.
And Trace has never been clueless.
No.
She's been naive. She's been wide-eyed. But I don't think she's ever been clueless, and I was a little disappointed in her characterization here.
Oh, I didn't see that at all. I'm glad you brought this up because this took me back to the conversation where Ahsoka in the last episode is walking on the street while Trace is up above looking at the Silver Angel, and Ahsoka says to Rafa, you might be cut out for this, but Trace, and I'm like, here it is. Here, Trace had no clue. She was clueless. Mm-hmm. Here is your textbook that, look, Trace is not cut out for this. And so when that happened, I wondered if they get through this, will Rafa remember this moment and think, okay, my sister really isn't cut out for this. So maybe we need to find a different avenue. I don't know. I don't know that we'll ever find that or, see that, but it definitely had an impact on me to have that thought.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. But the fact that she got them off the planet.
Uh-huh.
I kept saying to Mason, look at this. Look what Ahsoka did. It's so brave. And I mean, Ahsoka, again, can totally take care of herself. She's not worried about that. But then there was this wonderful moment where Rafa says, that was rare. And she talks about how that impacted her, that Ahsoka did that. And then in this interesting moment, she says, I'm going to go back and I'm going to help her. Yeah, because if I don't, Ahsoka will hold it over my head. And this is where I started to kind of struggle too. I thought, really, you're going to let pride possibly get in the way of you and your sister being murdered? I would like to think that deep down at her core, she does value Ahsoka, and Ahsoka continually saving their lives and selflessly giving herself over to the Pikes for the two of them to escape scot-free, basically. I think that moved her enough that she's so used to being hardened that she's not going to be all warm and fuzzy. But I do think she wants to save Ahsoka because it's her friend, but she's not going to share that with her sister. At least that's how I would like to interpret her actions.
Yeah, I thought that was a really meaningful moment as well. When she shows so much respect for and recognition of Ahsoka's sacrifice. And I think I have to be honest, I was a little surprised as well at her. I don't know. I mean, we weren't there when they flew back to Coruscant.
I thought it was flimsy that she was like, well, I'm going to save her because we're pride.
Yeah.
I was a little thrown by that.
Especially after the scene where, I mean, it just happened on Obadiah where, Ahsoka had split the sisters and Trace had agreed with her. So I can see that. A couple things that I wondered about was, in the underworld or in the level of the underworld that Rafa is in, is it not cool to let somebody do something good for you? Like,
possible.
And when they do that, you can't let it go. The other side of it is, and that's where you were headed, was
because you don't trust. Yeah.
Right. And so the other side of it was, does she sincerely concern for Ahsoka? Is she worried for her, and is she not showing Rafa, not showing that Ahsoka's not so bad. I can actually see how Ahsoka would, is a good person. I don't know. I'm not sure where that came from exactly, but those were where my mind went when that did happen.
It was interesting. So you mentioned the fact that the Pikes have their conversation, or they talk about, he knows, he always knows. So eventually Ahsoka breaks out, does this awesome thing where she grabs all these thermal detonators, which look a lot like the Coke bottles they sell at Galaxy's Edge, which made me very, very happy. Very happy.
Nice.
My son pointed out that I don't have a Sprite one yet, so I need to do that. So hopefully they'll open soon, so I can go get that Sprite.
That'd be cool. Yeah, that's right.
For sure. We'll get you one in August, hopefully. But before the big reveal, I mean, obviously, it's Maul, right? We know it's Maul. But before that happened, when they said he knows, he always knows. I looked at Mason and I paused and I said, "Who do you think that is?" And he said, "I don't know. Do you?" And I said, "I think so, but I'm not sure." And I was probably about 85% sure that I was right.
Yeah.
And so I said, "Let's do this." So we both got a piece of paper and we both wrote down who we thought it was and folded up. And he was so excited about it. So we folded him up, we put him over by the fish tank. And then when it was over, we read out loud. We each read each other's notes and we were both right. We both put Darth Maul.
Oh, cool.
Which is cool.
Awesome.
Did you think it was going to be Maul?
I didn't catch that line the first time I saw it.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't catch the line, so it didn't stick with me until I saw him. And then when I heard I made the realization at the same time Ahsoka did. When she hears the voice, I'm pretty sure my face mirrored her face with the realization of what? Okay, like her eyes did. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I slid under the couch.
Yeah, well, as you should.
Yes, absolutely.
So that conversation between Maul and the Pikes highlights for that, of course, are the mention of Crimson Dawn. So let's check. Let's put you on the spot, which I know you love. Where are we at in the timeline? If Darth Maul is here, we're talking about Crimson Dawn, but we also know what happened in season 5 with Maul and Palpatine and Savage Opress on Mandalore too.
Ooh. Gosh, I'm trying to think. So
it's tough. It's tough. The only reason I know is because I've been doing a lot of writing about this.
Okay, Palpatine says to him, "I'm going to leave you alive because I've got a plan for you."
Mm-hmm.
But Maul had already started making connections with the underworld when he was with Savage Opress, and so he'd already built that network.
He had a syndicate going. Yes.
Yes. So timeline-wise, obviously this follows the same timeline. This just goes on from season 5. Is that correct?
Well, that's what I'm kind of wondering. I believe so.
Okay. So it's after that. And so I don't know. I'm dying to know what the plan is because somewhere between that battle on Mandalore where Savage Opress is killed and Palpatine says to him, I've got an what does he say? I've got an idea. I've got a plan. I've got something for you. And then we go to Rebels and he has hatred for the Empire and all of that. So somewhere in between there is the plan, and Maul has created this hatred for Palpatine and the Sith and all of that. So I don't know. I'm dying to hear what you have to say, or maybe you can't.
Well, it's a bit. If I understand it correctly, Son of Dathomir is that comic book, Dark Horse comic book series that takes place after Palpatine has captured Maul, and Maul escapes, and that is when he kind of returns after being gone for a long time. He gets some of his old friends back, and he forms Crimson Dawn.
Okay,
which is, shortly before the formation of the Empire, really. And so this is, and Solo takes place. Let's see, how many years after Revenge of the Sith? About 9-10 years, something like that. I have to look at the timeline again, but he's running Crimson Dawn for a while. But this is kind of the early onset of that. But obviously, it's early enough that Crimson Dawn has its own, identity in the galaxy, because you've got Crimson Dawn is, I believe, you had members of the Black Sun, Crime War Syndicate, Hutt Clan, the Pikes, all of them. So they're all together. They're all dangerous. But he's running the show. What would have helped a ton is if we could have seen his lower half. Then you'd know if he's robotic or organic, what he looks like there. That would be the real way to really find out. But
I guess I just assumed when he says that to, the Crimson Dawn would love to, take on this work or take over your operation. I just assumed that was basically his threat, that this is going to happen to you eventually. The Pikes are out of business soon.
Yeah, I like that. So, interesting. Obviously, a huge tease to lead us into the Siege of Mandalore arc. So, with that, let's go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the rest of Together Again. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
As everyone knows, MEI and Mouse Fan Travel is the official travel partner of Coffee with Kenobi. They are wonderful and have always been so great and kind and supportive to me and my family, both for our travel and for travel for the show. Naturally, recently, travel is very, very different. In fact, it's not going on right now at all with everything going on in the world. And the good news is that with MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, they are going to help you have peace of mind. MEI and Mouse Fan Travel wants you to know that you are valued clients, but you're a part of the MEI family. They are putting their decades of experience to work to guide you through this uncertain time. They are going to be your advocates and are going to keep you informed and prepared to travel with confidence when you are ready, when you are comfortable. And they are suggesting that you postpone but don't cancel. They're still open for business. They will help you dream of your next trip. It doesn't have to be in 2020. It can be 2021 and beyond. This is why I love and trust MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, because they will take care of it and me. And they will you too. They're going to be looking up things and helping me and all of you to have peace of mind so that when you're ready, when things have settled down, MEI and Mouse Fan Travel will be the place for you to go. If you have any questions, be sure to reach out to MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, of course, or go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefan-travel. We are back, and we are talking about Together Again, the 8th episode in Season 7 of Star Wars The Clone Wars. And Rafa has already revealed that she's going to save Ahsoka, so they've got to get some spice. And I guess they return back to Kessel, but it's not really clear, is it?
No,
it's not. They have a dock to go to get some. And Rafa starts this long process of trying to get the spice. She goes in with a kind of a crazy scheme of saying, upstairs they're asking for this, and you need to help us out, and all this kind of stuff. I want to talk about that fight, her strategy, and what do we learn about Rafa in that whole thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Because she pushes that she's able to push the dock worker around. I don't recall what the name of that race is, but they're tinier and a little top heavy, and so she's pushing this guy around and says, "Go get your boss." And she's expecting the boss to be the same kind of character as the dock manager. She turns around and it's a Trandoshan who has a hard hat on, which helps. And so she does a little fighting. She tries to argue with him, and then she finally pulls out a iron bar and whacks him over the head, and it bends the bar and doesn't seem to do too much to the Trandoshan. And so she gets in a fight with him. And one thing I took out of this fight was, there's no way she's going to match up against this Trandoshan. He's clearly a worker, not a fighter, but nonetheless, he's a Trandoshan, so he's strong and powerful. And she's not going to outfight him, but she manages to outwit him. Another thing that came to mind during this was I thought it was very reminiscent of maybe some of the things that she saw from Ahsoka. 2 or even 3 times she tries this roundhouse kick on the Trandoshan, and neither one works. I think it's twice. He catches both of them, but I kept thinking, is she trying to emulate Ahsoka's fighting? And I was trying to go back to think, how many times did she see Ahsoka fight? It might have just been once, but that might have been enough to make an impact or an impression. But I really felt she was really trying to, I don't want to say be Ahsoka, but definitely took some notes from Ahsoka in this fight. So I don't know. What did you think about that little foray?
No, that one thing that crossed my mind was how they are so they're more similar. I mean, they're not more similar than they are different. They're still vastly different, but they do have some things in common. What this fight taught me about Rafa is that she's not just a liar, like I can't even think of the word, but just a consistent liar. But she's resourceful. She's much better with her hands and feet than I expected. And she also isn't a coward. She didn't buckle under pressure. She took on a pretty nasty Trandoshan.
Yeah.
And did not back down, was not afraid. And she was clever. The way that she defeats it is really something else. And I was impressed. I also know it's hard not to notice Rafa's face Trace's face while Rafa is trying to say and convince these Ben Quadraneros looking guards or bookkeepers basically, or clipboard artists, whatever you want to say, for the foreman for the thing, that this is, I'm supposed to be here. I'm trying to help you not get in trouble. Are you just being lazy? What is your problem? But it actually kind of made me a little bit more impressed with than I expected to be.
I liked how something that I thought was very characteristic of her that I totally appreciated when they're on that lift and it swings out over the pit or the canyon or whatever, and she so he has a hold of her, but then she manages to grab onto the rigging above and climb up there. And when she sits down, she crosses her legs. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
In a very casual, confident way. And you could tell, okay, she's got this figured out. She knows how she's going to deal with him because really all he has to do is jump and yank her down. But she crosses her legs. She's very satisfied and happy with herself. And she smashes the coupling that's holding that together, and boom, down goes the platform and the manager. And I just thought, I thought that was great. I thought that fit her character so well. That confidence and the smile and it was the leg cross that did it for me. It was so appropriate.
The swagger. Which was cool. I mean, it was one of the first times that throughout knowing her that I felt like she's capable. She's not just it's pathological. That's what I was thinking. She's not just a pathological liar. She's got some skill, and she's having some fun with it as well. But also not putting her sister at risk. I mean, she doesn't. I think that was an important aspect of this as well. So it works. They defeat the foreman, and then they're able to escape. So they get back really quickly to Ahsoka, and it's revealed that Ahsoka is a Jedi, and I really liked it because it wasn't overly melodramatic, because there's too many other things going on. You don't really have time for that.
Yes.
But I also thought it was important that they accepted her. And they, in my opinion, they should have, because she has always accepted them. She's really just been looking out for them. And I think that they both see that.
Yeah. I don't have much to say other than what you had just said, because I appreciated how it was mentioned. You're a what? And even Rafa, she can't be a Jedi. But then she comes to the quick realization that, this is the truth, and no one's fooling around here, and they move on with it. And we didn't have to have any wailing or gnashing of teeth or any crazy stuff like that. It just was what it was, and they moved on. So I like the way that that was handled.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was cool. And then she says, Ahsoka says, look, I trained, but I left the Jedi. So whatever. So they escape. It's very exciting. A lot of force pushing, and they get on their ship, and you hear some of the strains of John Williams escape music, like when Han, Leia, and Luke escape the Death Star. Here they come. The TIE fighters come after them. You hear little strains of that.
Yeah.
And then there's this great action sequence where, if you're a Jedi, instead of them being mad, you're a Jedi, blah, blah, they're like, okay, you can probably shoot. So here, take these cannons and help us out. And so then they do. Ahsoka's a great shot. They escape kind of easily, quite honestly. And then,
but I don't want to let I don't want to let it go that that it was an easy escape for the most part, but it did require some gutsy flying by Rafa. By Trace.
It did.
And so, which I think was a real growth moment for her. And it was at this point of the show that I realized all through this entire story arc, there's always been finger pointing. Well, we're in this situation because she dumped the spice. Well, we're in this situation because you got the job. Well, we're in this situation because you've messed everything up getting between us and getting trade. There's all this finger pointing through all the first 3 episodes. Well, here at the end, and it was at this point that I was like, everyone has played a hand in the escape, because they could not escape in the last episode. They could not escape the Pikes without it was either too much reliance on Ahsoka, or it was too much reliance on, I don't know, some half-brained plan by Rafa or Trace. In this episode, it took what's the word I'm looking for? It took the skill of all 3 of them to be able to finally break away, and the last moment was Trace's. And so I didn't want to let that go without that being said, because I thought that was a really important moment for Trace.
Yeah, they were a great team, and they all got to shine, which is what I think you were saying. Yeah, they all got all their considerable skill sets were able to kind of coalesce into this great unit, together again.
Absolutely.
So the end of this, at a scene that got me legitimately choked up. You should have, earlier in this, they had said, you should have told us when we were in this cell. You should have told us you were a Jedi.
Yeah.
But then Rafa says this beautiful thing. She says,
so great.
You may not think of yourself as a Jedi, but you act like one, or at least how I want them to be.
Oh,
I know. I gasped out loud when I first saw that or heard that as well. And I was talking to Mason about what that meant and why that was so important. But tell me what that did for you.
Well, I had to go back and listen to that again. Like I paused that. I said, Kaylee, I'm sorry. I got to go back and hear that again, because I thought she was going to, I thought it was going to go a different direction. We know what her feelings are about the Jedi. We know how she's felt all along about Ahsoka, come between her and her sister. And so I said, did she just say what I think she said? And so, but you act like one, but at least you act like one, or at least how I want them to be. I was like, that is the highest praise that you could get. And not just from Rafa, but from anybody. I mean, what praise there? And it made me ask the question, what does Rafa's view of what a Jedi does look like? Like, I don't know. How did Ahsoka change her mind, I guess? And granted, she just bailed them out. But, Rafa's made the argument all along, hey, if you weren't here, we'd be home counting our money. And so I do wonder, what does? Because we know that she thought Luminara was beautiful. She looked up to Luminara until she said what she said. And so she had a certain ideal. Then she spent all of these years kind of in hatred of the Jedi and the upper world. But then now she knows Ahsoka, the secret is revealed, and she says this. And so I just wonder, what if you ask Rafa, what should a Jedi be? I wonder how much of this conversation would bring this out. And then of course, Trace, very simply, and I wouldn't expect anything more or less from Trace, says, I consider you my friend. And so Ahsoka has made an impact on these sisters' lives.
And did you see what Rafa did when Trace said that?
Is that when she puts her hand on her shoulder?
Yeah, she just smiles at her.
Yeah.
And kind of nods me too. I'm not going to say that, but that me too. And I know now what will happen if they have more adventures together? Am I super optimistic that Rafa will go out of her way and act like a paladin or to help Ahsoka? Not necessarily, but my goodness, they all take a huge step together. I think they learn more from Ahsoka than Ahsoka learned from them. But then again, Ahsoka's been through a lot longer conflict in her life. I mean, nothing like what the Martez sisters dealt with seeing the death of their parents. I mean, that's
right.
that's Bruce Wayne level stuff.
Yeah.
But it's but they learn and they grow together. But Ahsoka doesn't have any time to rest because she's because that is her lot in life. And we get to see Bo-Katan, and I really am hoping we'll get to find out why Bo-Katan can take off her helmet all the time, but Din Djarin can't. I mean, I think that'll be interesting as time goes on, and maybe this arc will tell us. But they need Ahsoka's help because of Maul, right? They're obviously incredibly formidable warriors, but Maul is there, and we've known ever since the Ahsoka novel that this is why in Rebels Maul calls Ahsoka Lady Tano because of whatever's going to happen in these next 4 episodes.
Yeah,
they leave together, and I could not be more excited about that. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because we haven't seen the next episode yet. But anything you want to say before we wrap this one up about the fact that Bo-Katan is there in the big recruiting strategy?
I thought it was cool. I don't know. There's several moments here. First of all, I don't know. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to give this a B+ instead of an A is we go from this massive moment that concludes the four-part story arc. And I just felt super rushed when Bo-Katan says, well, isn't this sweet? And I was like, no, why did you have to do that? I wanted there to be more of a moment there. But I thought it was really interesting that Bo-Katan wasn't sure that Ahsoka would remember her. Her first line to her is, so you remember me. Don't worry, the Death Watch is gone, but we have a common enemy. I need your help. And I couldn't help but think about how Ahsoka had just spent time helping the common person, and how this is a transition back to a bigger life, something she had walked away from. And there just seemed to be something significant there in the shift of help. And Ahsoka even mentions, I'm afraid of where this might lead. And it's back to the Jedi. And I find that to be profound, that she's reluctant, that she feels like this might draw her back into the Jedi Order. But I think it really made me feel that she really has separated herself. And I think the story arc has really kind of cut that tie. Does that make sense? Without this 4-part story arc, I don't know that I would have felt like Ahsoka had really cut the tie. And so we don't know what to expect coming into the next 4, into the Siege of Mandalore. And will she fight with Jedi? Will she fight in sort of a clandestine way? I know from the trailers, we know she's going to play. She hasn't touched a lightsaber, and we know that a lightsaber is going to come into her hand at some point. But I think without this 4-part story arc, I wouldn't have believed anything that's going to happen in regards to her and her relationship with the Jedi.
Yes, and if anything, this showed me her reactions about her fear of going back. The fact that she just walks on, she doesn't balk, even though she's not running, but there's no reason to run for this part anyway. She is, again, just this great Jedi, one of the finest, and it's because of kind of everyone she's learned from and everything that she has experienced in her young life. Now I'm going to play for you a clip from Clone Wars Download. I was going to try to explain how Dave set it, but I thought, why don't I just let Dave play it? So the following clip you're about to hear is a sound bite from Clone Wars Download where he addresses Ahsoka and her place with the Jedi.
For me with Ahsoka, it was always important that as a young person, she's asking questions and she's not just following, that she can make up her own mind and that she can even go against what Anakin thinks. She has to be an individual. And to me, when you look at the Jedi in the prequel era, the one Jedi that has it most right is Qui-Gon. Because Qui-Gon understands that you can still love someone as long as you don't try to possess them, as long as you can let them go. He is self selfless. Ahsoka is on a selfless path. And because Qui-Gon taught Obi-Wan, taught Anakin, taught her, that teaching is in her. She gets the benefit of Anakin and Obi-Wan. Both of them teach her throughout the course of her life. And so she has kind of a nicely balanced view of things, where a lot of Jedi, I don't think, have that. So Ahsoka's tied to all of that, but she's making her own decisions outside of those character arcs. But I have to look at the whole thing and piece it together and bring it to a conclusion here in these last 12 episodes.
Amazing. Just, it's from one of the masters of Star Wars, Dave Filoni.
The master.
So,
well, not the, that'd be Lucas, but
that's right. One of the masters, right?
Exactly.
Yes. So it'll be great to see how that transcends and translates into the Siege of Mandalore. So, Tom, very, very excited. I asked you at the beginning to consider what this arc means for the overall Clone Wars saga itself. And maybe it's not fair to address that until we've seen the last 4 episodes, but do you want to weigh in on that at all?
Yeah, absolutely, I will. And I'm going to just reflect right back to what I said before the clip, and that was, without this story arc, I don't know that I could believe that Ahsoka doesn't want to go back to the Jedi. If she is to have engagement with the Jedi in the Siege of Mandalore, and she doesn't go back to them without the story arc, I would be like, why didn't she go back with them? So without beating a dead horse here, I'm going to give this 4-part story arc an A. In a complete, beginning to end, looking at the Martez sisters and what they bring to Ahsoka, what she in turn brings to them, her understanding of the part that the Jedi ignored. I don't want to say they ignored it, but the part of it that the Jedi could not give attention to, and that was the people. They fight for the ideals. They fight the big wars, all of that, but they could not dedicate themselves to the eyes of the people. And here Ahsoka finally has that opportunity to see that. And without this 4-part story arc, I don't believe that she understands that.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are the podcast you're looking for. This is
That's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have a cup of coffee with me, and for helping to spread the word about our Star Wars family we've got here at Coffee with Kenobi. To join us in the CWK Cafe, which is our Facebook group, and share your Star Wars thoughts, comments, reviews, and opinions in a family-friendly, spoiler-free place that is also drama-free, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/community and be part of the conversation. Talk about this week's show, or just talk some Star Wars. It is a lot of fun, and you'll make some new friends, as well as catch up with longtime friends there as well. I also want to thank all of our new and longtime members of the CWK family and let you know how much I appreciate your help and support. I love being able to give back to you with CWK Pour-Over, the exclusive weekly podcast not heard anywhere else. I want to thank our CWK family members, Dennis Keithley, Jason Hall, Angela Sauce, Chris Kavarka, Aaron Harris, Alexander Moylan, Ross Halliban, Jeff Ellis, David Nicely, Adam Bankhurst, Jessica Berry, Colby Mead, Frank Mulder, LJ Souter, Mark Suter, Nick Deco, Eric Struthers, BJ Smith, Jared Cantor, Brian McKinney, Christian Dale, Daz Davies, Thea Selby, Chris Metz, Caroline Maselli, Jim Capron, Blake Weaver, Brian Harding, Dan Ream, Kurt McKellen, Christine Turk, Simbot Defterdarian, Ian Thompson, Alex Procaccio, Hannah, Tyler Pampa, Connie Shee, Susan Gray, Chelsea Sansbury, and Josh Boylan. If you want to be an exclusive member of our CWK family, go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/support. It's a great way to help support and help out the show, and 10% of your monthly contributions go directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital to support the incredibly important work they are doing to help these brave children and their families. In addition to being a part of the community on Facebook, please don't forget to visit our website at www.coffeewithkenobi.com for Star Wars news, announcements, reviews, videos, and so much more. If you have a question for me or just want to share your thoughts on the air, feel free to email me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com, and I'll share them on the show. You can also connect with me on Twitter at Mr. Zer, MRZEHR. There are also a lot more ways to connect with me and Coffee with Kenobi on social media. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, and check us out on Pinterest. You can find me twice a month on the podcast Looking at Lucasfilm, part of the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, and you can find my writing on CWK's website, as well as StarWars.com and on IGN. And if you're considering starting a podcast or a blog, let me know how I can help you get started and help you make your creative vision a reality. Be sure to check out danzymedia.com and we can get the process started. I am also available to come to your school, conference, business, or organization to talk about how to tap into your strengths and help you bring out your very best. I want to inspire you to be inspired. Don't be afraid to take that first step into a larger world. Thanks as always to our CWK sponsors, especially MEI and Mousefan Travel, our travel partner and your one-stop shop for all things Walt Disney World, Disneyland, the Disney Cruise Lines, or anywhere on the planet that you want to go on vacation. Please go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel to book your magical vacation and help support Coffee with Kenobi in the process. If you like the show, please tweet out that you're listening, share it on Facebook, or invite your friends and family to tune in and share a cup of coffee with us. And if the force is especially with you, please take a couple of minutes to rate and review the show on iTunes or Google Podcasts. Every review makes a huge difference and helps spread the word. Well, I hope to revisit this later, but what I will say is that while this is not, if I knew there were only 12 episodes left and only 4 were going to heavily focus on Ahsoka exclusively, would these be the 4 that I wanted? I don't think so. I don't necessarily think so, but that being said, I was happy with them because I got to see her in action. Are they the best Ahsoka episodes that have ever been made? No, they're not, but they don't have to be. They were glorious. We learned a little bit about her. It's also very hard to try to build off of the end of season 5 and seeing her leave the Order and what comes from that. You can't have a massive high to a massive height. There's got to be some sort of a slowing down of the curve, and then we build up again to the Siege of Mandalore. So that's when we'll really know where this overall arc kind of stands to me.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Very good. Cool. Well, Tom, thanks as always for coming on Coffee with Kenobi and discussing Clone Wars. We've only got 4 left, which is a huge bummer, but you know, we're having a ball and there's so much more to come. At least another good month of Clone Wars. So
Absolutely.
why don't you let everyone know where they can reach out to you if they want to continue the conversation?
Oh, of course. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story arc or just this episode. Communicate with me through Twitter at Draftline, DRAFTLINE. Let me know your thoughts, or if you've got a little bit more to say, send me an email, tomg@coffeewithkenobi.com.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here. Move along.